it was and who else was on there, but I was saying that I really didn't think this deal was going to go through. You know, just when you see a stock move 5% lower 2 days in a row on a deal that everyone is questioning, I think that the base case for me in that situation is to think, okay, this deal is probably not going to happen. So, you know, I've learned more and more that stuff, although, you know, this might happen, it doesn't mean it's going to happen tomorrow like it did in this case. So, you know, I was able to go in, buy a little bit of PayPal common stock, and make a good profit on it so far, up 5-10%, whatever it is, and we move forward. But yeah, that was a good lucky story there that broke this morning. And then one other big one that I don't know how many people are going to care about here, if it's exactly the demographic, but Faze Clan, they're a big Call of Duty esports video game team. They are actually planning to go public through a merger with a SPAC B. Riley Principal. That's ticker BRPM. The deal will value Faze at about $1 billion. This deal is expected to close in Q1 of next year, and it will trade on the NASDAQ under the ticker Faze, F-A-Z-E. I was taking a little bit of a look into their slide deck, their investor deck. It was interesting. It's definitely another one of those companies that is going to be valued at a very, very high number. I believe their revenues for either last year or this year were like 50 million. So you can definitely kind of get to all the conversions there. You could do a deep dive into it. It's on Edgar, on the SEC portal. And that's good. I see we got a minute or two for another story or so. I have one that just crossed recently. MasterCard is actually preparing to announce that any of the banks and merchants on its platform will soon be able to accept crypto purchases for their products. So that came out from CNBC, so a pretty reputable source. Well, we'll see how that develops. I like to let these things actually come out and see what they look like, as opposed to just running in and jumping into these stories before they develop and we have a better understanding. So just know that is something that is coming soon. And Gav, it looks like we're about to head into the market open. I'll throw it back to you.
Perfect. Let's get right into it. Okay, so to everybody that's joining us, if you haven't been here before, my name is Guff Blacksburg. You can see my profile up here, and I'm here with Evan, Stock Market News, and we co-host this weekly at 9:20 a.m. EST. It's a series of spaces that we do, and we'll be doing spaces all week. I think that I have 12 spaces planned, and several of them will be with Evan. We also have a couple of amazing speakers up here that you should be checking out, Ben and Richard, and they're going to be helping us do some stock deep dives today, some analysis. We're going to be going through what's on their radar, what they've been searching. We might even do some live trading. So as you're listening, make sure to just be checking out the speakers. You can always find more info in the bios. And, you know, if it's something that appeals to you, be sure to throw them a follow. With that being said, it's now 9:30, so we're looking at market open. There's definitely some hot names that people are going to keep their eye on. So we had some SPACs going into last week that are definitely going to be drawing, I would say, some volume today. You know, things like DWAC, which are up, I guess, about 15%, maybe pre-market entering into today. Yeah, 15%. It was up about 27% pre-market, and now it looks like it's dropping a little bit. You have, of course, all of the growth names that we've been tracking over the last few weeks, maybe even last several weeks. So you have things like SoFi, which hasn't really moved much at all. It's basically flat. Snapchat slightly upwards. Palantir up about 1%. Tesla, on that news, which Evan just mentioned, of that big order, is up about 4%. This is a stock that we've been talking about for a little while now, and it's already at $950 a share. We were talking about it breaking through that 800 resistance point, and you know, a lot of people that I respect and value their opinion were kind of like, once it breaks that 800 point, we do see it moving towards that 1,000 range, and looks like they were correct as it continues to tick upwards. Affirm having a nice bounce back day of 2.36%, and some of these miners as well. So I'm assuming that based on what the miners are doing, that crypto is having some nice movement today. So over the weekend, there was definitely some big crypto stuff. SHIB, the coin, SHIB, was up about 50%, and it looks like the rest of the cryptos moving with them, or probably with Bitcoin, which is kind of the leader here, which is up 2.2% today to 63K and a half. So that's kind of a number that hopefully we'll get used to seeing. So the miners are moving with it. Things like Hut 8 mining, which has been on my radar, and I know Richard, so we'll talk about that, up 5% now, just moved. LC up about 1%. Solar's moving, and then yeah, you have those names DWAC and Fun, PHUN. Funds up about 23.5%. So those are some of the more growth style names, and then we'll also be talking some of the large cap. So things like Apple, which I think is having a okay start to the market, up 0.3%. SE down about 1.5%, Square up 1%, AMD up 1%. Overall, I'm seeing significantly more green currently than red. A nice open of the market. Around 9:45, we will get the typical heat map that you can see on FinViz, where we can actually get a great overall look at the market. But yeah, I mean, looks pretty solid to start. Evan, anything you want to add before we go into our speakers?
No, I think you covered it pretty well. Tesla opening up above 950 for the first time ever, almost at 960 right now. And yeah, I think you covered it pretty well besides that.
Cool. Awesome. Well, then I'm going to throw it over to you first, Ben. Would love to hear, over the weekend, maybe anything that you put onto your watch list, started analyzing, and then how that's starting to play out this morning.
Hey, good morning. Energy. This is the one that I'm kind of focused on this morning. I discussed it on Friday. Quite a few setups in that group. Things had kind of pulled back a little bit last week, and now looking good. One that was at the top of my radar was SD, and that one's coming out of a little flag, kind of a descending channel there. Gapped out above it, now above anchored VWAP from off of the high, little flag pattern there. It's up about 7.5% early to start, but there were quite a few in that group that I pointed out. ROCC used to be PVAC. They had a ticker change, but that's another one. Talus Energy, TALO. That one's up about 3.5%. That was another one that I discussed on Friday. Looks good. The other one is Denbury. Let's see that one. Yep, that one's up too. That one's up about 2.5%. Just trying to clear that pivot. That prior high was 81.37, and it's just now starting to push through there. But that was the main thing that I was focused on, is that energy had been so strong and then pulled back last week, and then kind of set up a bunch of names that all look good, light volume pullbacks, whether they were little flag patterns or little channels down that look like they were ready to come out, or a few of them were little descending wedges, and they kind of came down into either anchored VWAP or into the 50-day moving average. And when that happens, usually the buyers step in at those levels, and that's exactly what we ended up seeing. It was tough to get in them this morning because most of them gapped up, so you really had to, take, and that's so often the case now. You have to kind of stay ahead of it, because a lot of times, especially going into a weekend or end of day, they end up gapping the next morning. It makes it hard to come in and manage your risk with something that's gapping up 5 or 6%. So sometimes you got to maybe take partial position and kind of anticipate, and then can add to it so that your cost basis isn't too high. Go ahead.
I was just going to say that totally makes sense. And I'm just watching some of the ETFs in the industry that are moving significantly higher as well this morning.
Yeah, outside of energy, I'm watching an old favorite of mine, PGNY. Just love what they do. Good growth numbers. 64.35 is a pivot there. Just below that at 63.83 right now. And then through that pivot, have an all-time high 66.61. Will kind of look better if it puts in a handle here, moves sideways a little bit, because it's come from like 55 to 64 rather quickly. So if it goes sideways, puts in a little more of a handle here or a little flag, I think you get a breakout through that 64.35, and then you can take out that all-time high 66.61 above. That was one that I was watching. Skin is another one, SKIN. 28.37 pivot there. It's trading 27.14. I like this little consolidation, the way that one's set up. I have one more, which is a newer IPO, CFLT. I like the way that one's kind of flagging. It's actually down a little. One of the few on my watch list that's actually down a little bit this morning. But CFLT IPO, it's one that sets up to me, similar to kind of what we saw with some of these other IPOs like Bros and S and some of these where they move, they set up an IPO base and then they come out of there, move sideways, kind of flag a little bit before they make the next leg. We'll be looking for some of that in some of the others, but this one is a software named CFLT, and I kind of like that one if it can push out and get above that $70 level. I think it's in good shape to challenge the prior high 74 and a quarter and then make a new high above there. Not EPS positive yet, so you've got to look at revenues on that one. And sales are accelerating. They went from 46 to 51 to 64. But just keep in mind, and this is not just with CFLT, but with all of them, there's so many earnings coming up over the next couple weeks. You're going to want to keep an eye on those earnings dates. A lot of us saw what just happened with Snap into earnings. So if you don't have, a decent size cushion, definitely want to be aware of those earnings dates. CFLT has earnings in, I think, 10 days. So like I said, want to keep an eye on those earnings dates.
So with some of these names, let's dig in a little bit more into CFLT right there. So it came out of the IPO, pretty recently, set those first all-time highs, retraced down a bit words, and is now sitting, on that volume ledge at around 66 to 67. What move would you be looking for it to make today? Are you looking to take a position at all before that $70 range?
Not unless it comes in a little further. If it came in retested, anchored VWAP from off of the high, which is about $1 lower, maybe, but that's not really what I'm looking for there. I'm looking, if you take and make a descending trend line from off of the high, you'll have like 4 touches of that descending trend line coming down, and it basically tags Friday's high. So if you can take out Friday's high, that's where I really get interested, because then it's coming out of the flag. Friday's high was 69.95. So if you can push above that, you break out of that descending trend line, and then that flag pattern kind of confirms to the upside. So I'd rather take it on strength rather than take it on weakness. Now, some people may rather buy it down, and if that's the case, that's fine, but you're kind of in the middle here. You're not quite at anchored VWAP. You're above the 50-day. You're kind of in the middle of the range there. If I was going to take it, I'd rather get involved on strength over the highs. Otherwise, you have a chance that it just kind of chops around sideways, all week. And you want to try to avoid that when the market's moving well. You want to, get your money in stuff that's moving.
Definitely. And outside of, I guess, the oil, energy, stuff like that, does this kind of carry over into maybe like solar and stuff like that?
Oh, sure, sure. I mean, we've had some great setups over the last few weeks. Sedge in solar is one that I'm watching. Let's see, it's not really participating today, but there's a pivot there at 308.97. You broke through the pivot, then came back, kind of retesting it just below that now. But I think, yeah, it definitely carries over. At least that's been the case, where it does carry over into solar. Let me see, another one that I like is, and ENPH is another one kind of flagging, pulling back into the 10-day moving average or inside on the day today. But SEDG, ENPH, those are the solar ones. DQ is another one that's lower that I watch every once in a while. I'll take a look at Sunrun, RUN too. That's one that is still trying to get back above the year-to-date anchored VWAP and anchored VWAP from off of the high. It's dancing right under it, a couple bucks away from pushing through. So waiting to see if that one is able to reclaim those anchored VWAP levels above. But yeah, the energy, oftentimes when energy's hot, solar's right behind.
Love it. Love it. Yeah, keeping my eye on some of those SAG, MPH, and some others as well.
Yep.
Okay, Richard, I'd love to bring you into this, similar to what we proposed to Ben. I know you did plenty of research this weekend. What came in on your list? and how those items playing out today.
Sure. So yeah, I had about 15 names on my focus list this morning. I narrowed it down to about five: AFRM, Coin, Monday, Huts, and Bill. Um, so far, we had a gap up this morning, and I usually like to wait a little bit, especially Monday morning gap ups, because we do see some fades often, and we have seen that. Upwork was something on my focus list which tried to break out, was up 4 or 5%, and now is pulled all the way back in. Um, so kind of Monday morning gap ups, I'm trying to be really patient. I'm trying to remind myself of that. But some stuff that is definitely showing relative strength today is Coin and Hut, which are both crypto related. Those have held their gains since the open. They look pretty good. Hut is a 2-2 reversal. I didn't take it this morning. It's kind of building out a handle within an overall larger cup shape. So I'm kind of waiting for a few more days against the 10-day, ideally. Um, but Coin for me is standing out once again. Another 2-2 reversal back above a intraday pivot, or not an intraday pivot, but a intra-base pivot at around 306. If you draw that line across from the high of 512 back in 2021, you can see it's back above that level. Good upside reversal action on Friday, and then we're getting fall through. So this, I think, would be very constructive if it continues to kind of go sideways a little bit, tighten up, and then kind of develop another pivot before trying to push up towards the IPO highs and all of that. And you've got the IPO day close at 328, 329, which I think could definitely be some resistance up there. So I would like to see it kind of build out a structure, establish itself up here, see volume dry up as the stock price tightens up, and then see another breakout and a move, ideally like what we saw last week. So a little bit of some stocks on my radar. Bros is pointing back into me. It had such a strong day Friday. This isn't really surprising to me, but I would like to see it 100% holds the pivot at around 62.05 and the low of yesterday's breakout, which was at 60.51. So ideally, it just kind of forms some type of consolidation day. I don't want to see it close at the low of the day, but if it's inside yesterday's candle, no big deal really. AFRM was another one that was pushing up early, but it's also faded and now is back in the wick from yesterday. If it can form up a range here, I think that's 100% fine. We're seeing on Monday morning that a lot of stuff can basically move in the first 5 minutes and then pull back in pretty sharply. So you don't want to get caught out in some fake breakouts. And you really want to see what sticks and maybe even wait half an hour, 45 minutes to put in your orders. This is a early mistake I made in kind of my first year of trading, being too anxious to put in a trade. You find the perfect setup. You think it looks good, and then it pulls back in, stops you out, and then reverses and goes. So let's see how they build out intraday, and if there's some more opportunities intraday, that's what I'll be looking for as well.
Very interesting. Yeah, so I'm watching, Bros, because that was a name that we definitely had on the radar and had a great run up last week, last month, but now is down about 5% today. So you're looking for a little bit more traversal here, not trying to, get in right on this dip.
I've already got a position within the base, so I'm not looking to add anything at this point. Just trying to see if it rides the trend, holds the 10 EMA, and yeah, I'll just be waiting until it breaks the key moving averages on volume or stops me out on my raise stops. That's kind of my plan. But I've already got a position. I started at 49.64 and then added through around 54 a few weeks ago.
Got it. How about okay, so let's take a look at some of the miners that you mentioned. So HUT, HUT, for those that are trying to look, if you looked from the lows of September 29th up to the highs of October 20th, it ran up about 60% during that time, which Bitcoin had a massive run. It then dipped for 2 days, and now it's up about 8.6% today. So it bounced right. Well, I guess it didn't bounce necessarily, but it kind of looks like the bottom of that tails on the 10-day EMA, and it's now kind of moving upwards. So what is your thoughts on the formation that it's been creating over the last few weeks?
Yeah, I think it looks really strong, and it was definitely viable through yesterday's high, which would have been a 2-2 reversal. I just wasn't too anxious to play it early in the morning, but I mean, it's holding up super well. Overall, I like the structure. If you zoom out a little, starting in September of 2020, it had a massive run up of 18, 1800%, and then pulled back in, forming a larger cup, 73%. So very 100% very deep. But given that massive run up, I think that's a little bit normal. And now it's forming almost a base within base with a pivot at around 11.32, which now it's pulled back into and now it's reconfirming off of. So I think it looks pretty good. I would like to see it go sideways and kind of have the volume dry up, indicating that supply has kind of stopped coming to market. But you don't always get what you want, and this could 100% just break out through the recent highs at around 13. But ideally, it goes sideways, maybe forms an inside day tomorrow with low volume, and then breaks out from there, so you can manage risk right at the low of that prior day. If that makes sense.
Gotcha. Yeah, continuing to keep my eye on it too. It's one that I've wanted to start a position in, but I've missed several of the moves on, but it's okay because I'm not losing money when I don't have a position, and it's just opportunity cost. Okay, so I'm gonna go to coin afterwards, but let's just take a look real quick. I just want to get your thoughts on these two. I don't think Fun's a spec. I know that DUAC is. I'm not sure about Fun. I'd have to take another look at it. But these two that are moving just insanely. So they both already got halted this morning. They're now moving slightly higher. So DWAC, Digital World Acquisition Corp, is now up about 9% to $102. Fun, PHUN, up 12%. These have both been extremely volatile this morning. I'm going to guess that the volume is off the charts again. And, if you look back to Friday, Thursday, these were ones that were trading, hundreds, if not 1,000% up in a day. Just any general thoughts on these? Is it something you just are staying entirely away from?
Yeah, these aren't really my focus. I'm kind of focused on the growth stock leaders, the high growth stocks with great earnings, sales margins. If you're a day trader, this is kind of what you live for. This high volatility, especially the first day, because it didn't get halted as much and it kind of trended nicely. But now you're getting into a lot of eyeballs are on this. There's just a lot more stuff going on, and it can get halted and then drop 20%. So with my risk profile, I don't want to lose money. That's my number one goal. I want to manage risk, don't want to lose money. And I don't want to trade something that can drop 20% 5 minutes later. That's just kind of not my style.
Yeah. How about you, Ben?
Completely agree with Richard. Just tough to manage risk. It's not something that I'm even focused on. I'm looking at, the growth leaders, the stuff that has revenue and earnings behind it. Yeah, for day traders, fantastic, have at it. But yeah, definitely not my thing.
Yeah, that's fair. Okay. And then Richard, you'd also mentioned coin. Thoughts on the current coin setup?
Sure. So talking through the coin chart, and I've made a couple of videos about this as well. We have now a nicely developed base. It's above the anchored VWAP from that IPO day, so kind of net sentiment is bullish. And we had a nice move starting on 10.5. That's kind of the first actual setup where earlier it was in a decline. It pulled back right to a volume anchor. Now, a volume anchor is basically what you look for within a base to kind of judge accumulation versus distribution. So the volume anchor for me was 519.21. And I think I have posted a chart on this. I don't know if it can be pinned to the top here. But anyway, the volume maker is at 519.21. So I take that close and draw a horizontal line from that close, which is at 224.76. And the recent pullback starting in September of this year, basically the lows were right at that volume maker. So 10.5 was the first time it really confirms off that those lows, and that starts a momentum burst up to 258, and then we go sideways with declining volume, and then we get the news of the NFT marketplace. Some N and Can Slim comes into play, and we get a strong push of 25%, almost 30% actually in just 5 days. And I always want to see relative strength before I buy. I know that might feel like you've missed the move, but usually if something's going to be a huge leader, there'll be many, many chances along the way to get in. So I pushed myself in at 276.25 as it was breaking through some pivots, undercut rally off the Anchor VWAP. I made a video about that if you want the full details. But then it pushed off nicely. I've got a profit now, and now I want to see it go quite and tight around the 320 to 300 level, and I want to see it tighten up, volume to decrease, indicating that supply is being absorbed, and then a breakout through 318 would really reconfirm this uptrend. Now, it did have a 2-2 reversal today, but the consolidation it's formed is a little bit short for me. And I think it could use a little bit more time at these levels, but definitely it's got a lot of momentum behind it. It's got the N factor, it's got fantastic earnings, sales margins, everything I look for in a stock. And I think if it really starts to push through 320, it's one of the leaders in the market, and I will kind of look for it to trend and try to challenge those IPO day highs around 429. Now, I have no idea how this stock is going to go. It could completely reverse tomorrow, break under 300, and almost likely be stopped out. But I am watching for additional setup, maybe add a little bit to my position if it kind of breaks through 318 or sets up a DTL after going sideways for a few days, something like that. So that's kind of what I'm looking for with coin.
Awesome. Awesome. Appreciate that. Evan, there's, I guess, a couple things. So Peter said he was going to come in at 10. I know a couple things that we want to do are our trade of the week. We do have the bullish rippers up here, so that's something that we want to talk about. And there's also plenty of earnings to talk over here this week. There's everything from, Facebook, AMD, Visa, Twitter, Spotify, Amazon. It's one of the most loaded weeks. So I want to throw it over to you to be like, do you want to talk about earnings for a few? Should we try to find our trade of the week? What do you want to do?
I'll keep it quick on earnings, and then I'd be down to get into the trade of the week. This is like the craziest week of earnings each cycle, full stop. There's no other week that's close to this one. 50%, more than 50% of the S&P 500's total market cap reports earnings this week, including Facebook, which is today, but the largest 4 companies in the world, Apple, Amazon, Microsoft, Google, all report earnings this week. This is the craziest week by far. Facebook, which is the only major one that goes earnings today. Wall Street is expecting EPS of $3.18 and revenue of $29.5 billion. That $29.5 billion is up from $21.47 billion last year. So that's about a 37% increase, which is very, very strong for a company of Facebook's size. But that's just the prelude into the next 3 days, which really are the craziness when it starts. Tomorrow alone, we have AMD, Microsoft, Google, Visa, Twitter, UPS, General Electric, 3M, Lockheed Martin, JetBlue, Raytheon, Robinhood. That's tomorrow alone. These next couple days are going to be crazy. There's too many earnings to really go in depth into any of them. On Friday, our Friday spaces, we're going to look back at the biggest 2, 3, 4. That's going to be difficult, but we're going to do that, and that's going to be a big focus for this week and then. But with that, I think it's a good move to get into the trade of the week. And one thing that I want to say is that normally I really hate trading around earnings just because of the way the stocks move and how difficult it is to predict. So I would love to, maybe if there was a way that we can, for the trade of the week, get a stock that isn't reporting this week. It would be nice, but we're going to run into an issue with that because, like I said, this is by far the biggest week, and we have like 50% of the companies reporting. So I am down to get into one of these names. My mind instantly goes to Facebook or Twitter, hoping for an overperformance from what happened to Snapchat. But I would love to hear, Gav, your thoughts, and then some of our amazing traders' thoughts up here.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, I'm taking a look at Facebook right now, and it just bounced off the 200 day. We finally got down to there. If you go back to where we initially traded Facebook, it did not come all the way down there. We tried to play it off of a volume ledge slightly higher up, around I think the 330 mark, maybe even 340. But now it's finally hit the 200 day. So to me, the fact that it's hit the 200 day and it's below a bunch of other cumulative averages, that it could potentially come back through if it was to outperform. I think it could have a pretty solid day. It's already up today, I believe. Let's see. Facebook, oh, just slightly up today. So literally just bounced off the 200 day. So looking like a nice setup there. And then, some of the others on my radar, LC. Again, this is a little bit of a similar business model to Upstart, slightly different though. And, I talked about this with Jonah on Wednesday, and it's something that I think he started a position in, and that he's been bullish on. This is the total opposite. It's way above all its community averages. It is significantly higher, and it's looking to set all-time highs today, which is not necessarily a bad thing. So Facebook, LC, I don't want to touch Snapchat. Screw that stock. Sorry. Um, and let's see if there's anything else that stands out.
Wolf, while we're
Uh,
looking, I
yeah,
do quickly want to go into the shout out. So we're talking about our Rippers trade of the week here. I want to give a shout out to the sponsor for this trade. They give us money each week so that we can kind of go into these options plays without having to risk our own money. The real goal of these is to, do these trades and then report back to you all on Friday with a lesson. The whole idea of this is to, allow us to lose our money so that you guys can learn a lesson and not have to make the same mistakes yourself. So that really is what we're trying to do here. If you are a fan of these spaces or anything like that, check out the sponsor. I personally tweet from the account. It's Bullish Rippers. It's the green raccoon that is up here as a speaker. Just, go in, check them out, give them a follow. I would appreciate that. And yeah, back to the trade of the week. One quick thing with Facebook, which I don't think this is gonna matter too much, but it could. You never know. They're gonna announce the parent company, I believe, today. That will be a changed name from Facebook. So I wonder if this could be the start of a, maybe getting away from the terrible headlines and everything like that is Facebook. So that maybe it's a start. I don't know if it's gonna move too much, but
yeah, and then the other one that's on my radar. So great points there. And I will say, we're not trying to lose money. We just happen to not have a winning record right now. We are trying to make money on these. We're trying to take good setups, but again, definitely not financial advice as it's not our money. The other one that I'm looking at, which I really like to set up on, is already moving back, is C Limited, which dropped down to its 21-day moving average today, promptly jumped right back off of it and is moving up higher, but has been down this week. And I don't know. This is a stock where I buy the dips pretty much always, especially when it comes down to the 50-day, which it neared the 50-day, but it seems to love to jump off that. So I'll throw it over to you first, Ben. Those are some of the things that stand out to us. Facebook, SE, LC. Any thoughts on those names?
I own LC. As far as like, taking a new position, it's a little bit extended, but if it gets out over that high, 36, 34, I think you're in good shape there. But I like the way you're thinking with SE. That's one that's paid well to buy the dips. You're just coming off the 20 or 21. Yeah, I kind of I can get on board with that one more so than the others. A little LC, a little extended. I love that name, and I'm just probably a little biased because my cost basis is lower. But I could definitely get on board with SE here.
Any thoughts on Facebook?
Earnings tonight, so no. I mean, I get what you're looking at. If it didn't have earnings tonight and you're saying, oh, we're right there at the 200, yeah, great. But the fact that it has earnings tonight, just a coin toss to me. I have no idea what they're going to report, what their numbers are going to look like, what their outlook's going to look like. Yeah, there's just no way for me to manage risk with that one. Now, I will say this, if you're going to make a bet on earnings, options a way to do it because your downside is limited to just what you paid for the option.
Yeah, definitely. And also to anyone who's listening, I think the reason some of the hesitation can come in, and correct me if I'm wrong, is, I'm looking here and saying the 200 is going to provide support, but it could also be, if it falls through that, you could see a pretty far drop, right?
Exactly. A snap type drop is certainly a possibility depending on what the numbers look like and what they say.
Okay, very fair. So Evan, take a look at real quick at SE. You can take a look at their options. They're pretty expensive. I don't know if we'd want to do weeklies on this. The weeklies are going to be what's within budget, but if we went, so just so everyone knows, our budget's around 500 bucks. Although I guess for this month it's higher, Evan, because we made money on the first trade. So
Let's
we have
go.
like 600 something. So we could look at like SE November 5th, 355s.
Can I throw one more name out there, maybe?
Yeah, of course.
So I'm looking at Pinterest, and all I'm looking at right now is the fact that it was at a 56 before PayPal announced anything with it or any rumors came up. It obviously jumped up to 70 or whatever, but it's back down to 50 right now. So I wonder, this might be a 2-day skid type thing or a multiple day skid, like we saw PayPal move lower for 2 days in a row. But I wonder if this is going to be the type of thing where just Pinterest going back to the mean where it was, kind of being attracted back to that, and maybe this is a little bit of an overreaction for now. But I am a little worried that this just might be the first day of a 1-2 day move. But I don't know if anyone else has any thoughts on that, but it's a little interesting.
Richard, any thoughts on that?
Nothing really to add. Going back to Facebook, I want to kind of jump on what Ben was saying. For me, anything below a declining 50-day moving average, I learned this from Mike Webster, is pretty much no touch. And I also don't like how it has an unfilled gap, and that's how it lost the 50-day in 920. So, and you also just see a bunch of red pillars in the volume. To me, it looks right now it just a little bit under distribution. It could potentially have formed a bottom at 317, but yeah, it's just not leading the market at this point. The relative strength line is in a decline since 915, and I try to focus on the stocks that are leading the market, that are under accumulation and breaking out of bases versus forming them, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's pretty fair. What about SE?
SE, yeah, I mean, this has been a leader. I missed the entire move in 2020. I just wasn't focused on it, and it's held up a lot better than a lot of the previous 2020 leaders. And today, yeah, it's holding the 21 EMA. I would definitely like to see it close above that, and ideally close green on the day. It's breaking a little bit the range that it formed above 350, which gives me a little bit of pause today, just in one bar. But it's all about the close today, I think. And it's formed a little bit of a base on base pattern with a base pivot at 361. So if it doesn't manage to kind of regain that range, it's a little bit of a failed breakout on lower volume. So that's just a few things that I'm seeing. The best entry for me would have been breaking out of kind of a cheat entry within that second base at about 332, and that was on 1013. It had a nice move on volume. Catch it right at the pivot. You're still positive so far, and you can kind of you could have managed risk at all the moving averages, which were kind of coiled up right at that level: the 21 EMA, the 10 EMA, and the 50 SMA. So right now, it's acting well in the day so far, recovering. But I would like to see it close back near that range, near 350.
Very interesting. I'd say for me, the one thing that I'm seeing here is there seems to be, I mean, I'm getting different readings out. So I'm looking at it on unusual whales, and there looks to be a ton of bullish call sentiment on this, with about $2 million on the weeklies, and the most popular strike being around 350, although the 345s and the 370s also look kind of popular. But when I'm looking at it to actually just go through these, I'm really not seeing that volume being shown on the actual calls. And I'm looking right now at the November 5th calls. Even if I go up to like 360, 357, 355, the volume seems super low, just to me. So I hear what you're saying. I mean, the stock's moving back up as we're talking, right? It was down almost 5% today, and it's continuously moved upwards. So it's interesting to see. This is one that has a lot of strength. Um, yeah, I mean, maybe it's something that we do breathe on. I'm not sure. What do you think, Evan?
Listen, I'm fine with trying to just make the trade and see how it goes. If we want to take a breather and then kind of wait a day and enter into something either at the end of today or a little early tomorrow, I'm totally down for that. C Limited is a good place to start. Truthfully, dude, if you wanted to kind of just enter in and see how it goes, and we can kind of get the lesson in, I'm cool with that. But like I said, if we want to wait, get a little bit of a better entry, I'm also down. So basically, that I have no help for you here. Sorry.
It's okay. I'll try to DM with Gerg and get some more input on that. Also, I think Peter Tuffman told me that he was going to be here at 10. I've been texting with him. Um, and
Do you know
I'll see if I can.
something else big that happened while we were live? A little bit of news. Well, hopefully Peter can get here soon. But Tesla actually now has a larger market cap than Facebook. Kind of, it's been happening a little bit slowly, and obviously today's pop really kind of just made it happen really quickly out of nowhere. But yeah, Tesla was over 960 billion. It was about 950 billion market cap, and Facebook's right around 920. So that's a little bit of a weird, interesting situation to have happen, and it's closing in on that $1 trillion market cap. Just gonna quickly look and see if I have any other news stories. I saw
Are these
something
all-time
yeah,
high, right?
all-time high, yes. It's pulled back a little bit back to $950 dollars, and that gives it about a $940 billion market cap. And as we saw, Facebook has moved up a little bit today, so the gap is only $10 billion now, but it is still over it. Bitcoin is sitting at about a $1.2 trillion market cap, for anyone wondering.
Pretty nuts to see. Okay, so I just texted Peter again to get him in here. For anyone who's unfamiliar, Peter is fantastic for macro perspective on what's going on in the market, what's going on in the world. Of course, you know, things that like the market as a whole does get affected by macro events. So it's really important to know those and understand them so you protect yourself from a risk perspective. He works out of the New York Stock Exchange. So trying to get him onto here. Also, we've been running for almost an hour now. Obviously, you've heard and had the opportunity now to hear from Ben and Richard, you know, Evan, the expertise that they're approaching this with, the way that they, you know, really do this on a daily basis. So I highly recommend if you're not already following them to be following them. They're going to be on more spaces with us throughout the week. It's a great opportunity to come and learn for free. You don't have to pay anything. So I'm sure that they would deeply appreciate that if you went ahead and threw that to them so that, you know, you could see more of their content. I know that they put, you know, hours and hours and hours into the weekend. You know, what they're talking about here isn't just off the cuff, like maybe more my style, where, you know, I'm looking, charting, and a little bit more off the cuff, and I think they come to it with a lot of preparation. But there we go. There's Peter. What's going on, Peter?
Hey guys, how you doing?
Living the dream. How's your morning?
My morning is I'm actually on the West Side Highway. It looks like there's some major, I don't know, there's helicopters overhead. There's 1,000 cops at 42nd Street. So clearly, and there was an emergency truck. So something definitely the heck is going on. But anyway, I'm making my way down to Wall Street. How's everybody today?
Well, sounds intense over there. Somebody's going after the jewels or something. I don't know.
Who
But
the
it
heck?
sounds interesting. Yeah, I mean, we're having a
Anyway,
good. Yeah.
no, let's chat about the market. Look, the market did this bit of a whipsaw in the opening, right? I can even see it here, you know, from where I'm sitting. And it's look, I think we're in a fascinating space. Last week was a solid showing. You know, 86% of the S&P is reported they're better. But I think we really need to focus on price action, right? The market's in sort of an odd spot, right? We got news coming out over the weekend about Evergard, and they're going into the electric car space. You know, you know, some stocks are. It's sort of a it's an odd place to, you know, look. The market feels really strong. A little divergence from the Dow and the S&P, right? Dow closed at a record high. S&P was a little weaker on the Friday close. There are obviously sectors that are getting a little bit beaten up, and we're seeing, you know, are we going to see a little more consolidation here? You know, I think it's important for people to note. If I lose you, it's because I'm sort of meandering around Lower Manhattan. Let me know. But I think it's important to note that earnings season is, you know, is not your grandfather's earnings season either. I think they kind of adjust numbers so as not to disappoint and not sort of derail the recovery in any way. I know Tepper talked about, you know, that we're going to get into the tapering story, and you know, some people are fearful about that. Will that dislocate the rally? And to be perfectly honest, I think the rally is strong. The economy's definitely got some obstacles to it. But you know, I think this is going to be a daily, ever evolving story. Where do we go from the top, right? Do we forge on and something will catalyze us into the stratosphere and we'll close out the year at the high, or are we going to sort of see some consolidation into the end of October? Is it not going to be a Santa Claus rally? I'm sort of in a quandary at this point.
What would be the deciding factors to tip one way versus the other?
You know what? The market will tell us that. I'm not that smart, guys. I know I look like Einstein, but I'm surely not as bright. Things that would normally help us make our decision, about where the market's going to go, like how is it reacting to the taper story? How is it reacting to the supply chain story? What's going on with the administration? Are we going to have debt ceiling problems once again because they just kicked the ball down the road? Is there going to be this $1 trillion package? Is the dysfunctionality of what's going on in Washington going to affect the market? How is the rest of earnings season going to go? Is there a Santa Claus rally? Is the state of the economy and the virus going to draw back on the market's momentum, or is the momentum of the market going to create a nice backwind for the economy? These are all the questions on the table, and the market will be the deciding factor. It'll tell us what it thinks. There's so many new players in the game. So many of the trades are very crowded. The earnings space and the risk space and the crypto space. So it would be presumptuous for me to be able to tell you what do I think is going to be the one thing that's going to either catalyze us into a higher market, or it's going to be the thing that catalyzes a consolidation. I'm not that friggin' smart, and I think anybody who claims to be or can really figure this very complex puzzle out, I think is better than me or just full of BS. So I think the market action, the price action, will really determine where we go from here.
Absolutely. Evan, any thoughts or questions off the bat, and then we'll go to our speakers.
Yeah, no, thank you for coming in as always, Peter. Love having you. Hopefully, we're 2 in a row with you being able to hear me.
I do hear you, Evan. It's wonderful. I love it.
Let's go. It looks like they might have that problem fixed.
Yes, sir.
Awesome. Love it. So, pretty much what we talked about a little bit. This is the craziest week of earnings. So, I would love to maybe get your thoughts on, it is still early. Like, we still have 50% of the S&P that reports this week. But maybe your overall thoughts more of a macro of how these earnings have gone so far, or like how you've seen stocks reacting to earnings. If there's been anything with that.
Are you asking me? Is this question to
Yeah.
me?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, cool. You know what? As I said, I'm kind of baffled, by it. Earnings season over the last, at least surely in 2020 and 2021 have been, completely different than normal, right? Look, companies will lower expectations so as not to really disappoint look, we go back to early 2020, or actually, when was it? It was, it was 2020 when Jamie Dimon came on and said, look, you know what? Things are so dysfunctional and dislocated. I can't even give you guidance of what it's going to look like down the road with COVID on the table, right? So I think we need to sort of step back to that mode for a minute and realize that the recovery story, the reopening story, has still a lot of unknowns and obstacles to it. And so when you watch a Netflix come out with a really good earnings and the thing, rally $50, go down $50, and then end up the next day down a little bit more, you've got to say, okay, well, is this a crowded trade? Is this, where are the earnings sort of the expectations lowered so as not to disappoint? How do we stand here? I mean, how can we really, there's certain sectors. Look, obviously, this supply chain story is a bigger story than the market's willing to accept, right? We do have thousands of ships off the coast. We have no truckers. The labor force is in a state of complete disarray. So, it's hard for me to pick a sector or a stock in particular. I am hopeful that where we're coming from in 2020, then a lot of these companies' earnings reports are going to be solid. The banks look good. The consumer, that's my question. Where is the consumer now? 4.3 million people quit their jobs in August, guys. Right? Well, that's a crazy number, right? There's a shortage of 160,000 truckers. for the industry to be able to deliver the goods and services to the heartland of America, right? So there's so many sectors that are very consumer based, they're economic based, that are like, wow, I don't understand. Where is everybody? Did they make enough money trading Dogecoin that they never have to go back to work again? What about truckers who were truckers before the pandemic? Are they just not going back to work, even though they've raised their hourly wage to $50 an hour and they're willing to give them a $15,000 signing bonus? Where is everybody? Why? I know why there's anxiety about going back to work with COVID. Maybe some people are feeling, you know what, I'm getting paid to stay home for a little while. Why don't I wait to go back to work? Or I quit my job, I'm going into a whole new sector. I'm kind of confused. A lot of these, I had a chat with Bob Pisani, the CNBC reporter, the other day, and about, where is the labor force? What's going to happen going forward? And I think that will determine the state of the consumer. That's a question I really want to understand, and I think it will have huge bearing on the market and on the economy in a big way, because so many of the companies going forward here that are going to release earnings are consumer based companies. Is the consumer comfortable enough to start spending money at Christmas here? How is the retail sector going to respond? Is the luxury industry going to have a robust earnings season coming in to Christmas? So there's so many unknowns on the table. I know the market is trading at record highs, but if you look into the nooks and crannies of so many sectors, I think you're seeing some stocks that are under a lot of pressure. So I am an ever evolving student in this market, trying to figure out an economy and a market that has no playbook at the moment, right? There are a lot of moving parts here. There's so much I don't understand. I really would love someone to shed some light on this labor story for me. Are these 4.3 million people going to go back to school and go get new jobs? Are they going to come back into the labor force down the road? I don't know. So I'm kind of baffled.
I wonder if any of our, first off, I also see Jay Woods in the audience, and I'm sure you'd love to chat with him, so I invited him up if he wants to come up. And Richard or Ben, do you have thoughts on this from the macro perspective?
I just agree with Peter. It's everything we're creating history here. There's no map, to kind of go by. There's not much precedent. This isn't something that we've seen before and we can point to and say, oh, here's what happened. It's kind of just taking it day to day and week to week and seeing these reports as they come out. Like Peter was saying with the jobs, it's kind of shocking. And yeah, we just have to see how it goes. And tying that into the big picture, I think Peter will be the first to tell you too, watch price, because there is no other roadmap to really go by and judge. So just have to pay attention to price. If we keep climbing, we keep making new highs, market stays healthy, you stick with it. But that's guided by price, not by those numbers, because certainly if you're just watching those employment reports and those numbers, you could be terrified.
Correct. I agree.
How about you,
Look,
Dan?
sorry. Go ahead.
No, you, Peter.
No, I was just going to say, look, guys, let's go back to last week for a second and look. I'm fascinated by the new. We've talked about it before. This new phenomenon of young, uneducated traders were in the market. I guess most of them were in friggin' DWAC last week, right? When you see, I love to analyze the sort of the fringe of what's going on. Like what, there are, you saw DWAC go from, 10 to 175 and back to 90, right? And it brings us back to the price action story. As a long-term investor, guys, I think the market is going to be fine. It's clear, historically, if we can find anything to latch, chomp our teeth into from the historic point of view, as Ben said and I said, that there's no playbook for the bigger picture here, then net at the end of the road in a year, we're going to look back at this and go, wow, that was a rough couple of years, but oh, thank God the market, you know, got the stimulus it needed and got the energy it needed and got the enthusiasm and the new generation of traders in there, and we're going to forge on to, you know, to the next stage in our lives. But to be in it now and to watch it on a day to day, it's kind of fascinating. You know, the crypto space. You know, we're seeing people sort of shuffle into spaces, right? To sectors. Everybody's all in on this one today, and everyone's in the SPAC mode, and then they're in IPO mode, and then they're in crypto mode, and then they're like, you know, in the meme stock mode, and then they're in earnings mode. And so it's fascinating to watch the waves. You know, the market is not trading, even though it's trading at record highs, its behavior is not normal, right? In any respect. The way some of these names are trading is not normal. You know, to look at Netflix, I mean, there's a new normal, right? Let's be clear about that, right? Even from the earnings perspective, guys, you're seeing stocks that are, you know, earnings are blowing out and they're getting sort of battered around really quickly. So is that a function of, you know, of algorithms, uh, uh, lack of volatility, lack of liquidity in the marketplace, the new electronic market? You know, I don't know. I'm fascinated. I am an ever growing, evolving student in this market.
I brought Danny up. Danny, I'd love to hear your thoughts this morning on any news that stood out to you. We're talking kind of macro perspective as we go into this week of earnings. Is, you know, the market at all-time highs? What could make or break to move higher or lower?
Yeah, thanks for inviting me up. I was actually just coming on to listen, but happy to contribute some thoughts. So you know, like Ben said, follow the money. That's all I've been doing for the last probably 2 months. You know, while as the market's been kind of chopping sideways, and now we're back at all-time highs. I agree with Peter. We'll be fine in the long run, but this is a new market. This is a new day. The pandemic changed everything. And for those that think that maybe things were going to go back to normal, just watch what happens in crypto over the next 3 to 4 months. It's going to blow people's minds. You know, I don't know how that's going to affect the traditional markets, but all I can say is, you know, a lot of people's eyes have been wide open, that were in the job market, that either are no longer in the job market or no longer wanting to do the job that they used to do. And I've been working on in the background on some things about the future of work. And you know, this is a new day. Things are going to change. The future of work is going to change. How people interact with each other is going to change, and that is just fundamentally going to change how we invest, how we look at the markets. Everything is going to change. Everything has changed, but nothing is going back to normal. So this is the new normal. And you know, when it comes to the markets, for me, I'm just focusing on where the strength is. You know, I'm looking at Tesla 970 now. It's probably going to hit 1,000 today, maybe tomorrow. A firm pay as you go. I know people have things to say about that, but you know what? It's going up. Coinbase, it's going up. So, you know, I'm focusing on those names. I'm seeing where the strength is. That's what I'm following in the short term. In the long term, you know, it's looking at what's going to be around in 5 to 10 years. Who's working on the future of work? That's where my eyes are for the future. But right now, it's just focusing on strength.
Yeah, that definitely, you know, makes sense to follow that strength. I think that's what we've been doing over the past few weeks. And, you know, good points there with Tesla, which has moved $20 higher since we last touched on it, up to 972 from that 950 mark. So Evan, I'm sure you have the little, you know, the market cap update, as it now hits 7% up on the day. What's crazy is I was actually looking at the Tesla calls because they're just out of my budget, unfortunately. But what was really interesting to me, and I was looking at the weeklies here because that's the only thing I could even fathom, is the drop off. And wow, it's crazy. So the drop off from the $1,000 calls to the 1050. So I think the mindset here is maybe that 1,000 is a huge point of resistance in Tesla, because the $1,000 weekly calls were going for $1,200 currently, and the 1,050 are going for $500. So it's about a 70% drop off, or 60%, whatever it is, compared to the 990 to 1,000, which is a much smaller drop. But those 1050s, just want to say, when I looked at them 5 minutes ago, less than 5 minutes ago, they were going for 300. and now they're going for 520. So maybe I should have grabbed those. I did grab, also, this is completely not um, financial advice. There's a stock right now called Backed, BAKKT, that is just running on insane volume. Looks like to be potentially a short squeeze. I don't
Uh,
know, but
there was a news story that came out about them, and it was like Mastercard was partnering them to like do their new crypto solutions that they're rolling out. Was what I sent it higher, I believe.
I I just YOLO'd in while we were talking about macro, and it's up 40%, 45%. The call that I just hopped into 52% now. So I only bought one. It's not a big purchase. I'm up like $100. So that's just something that I'm kind of in. I might set a stop loss soon. I haven't yet just because of how volatile it is. But yeah, that's just one thing which I have my eye on. So okay, so bringing it back, Peter, I want to throw it back to you with like, what's your thoughts on the focusing on the strength? And I think it's how we started out this call, was we were talking about the strength within energy that we had seen, and there was a slight pullback. So continuously finding areas that have shown strength, maybe a slight pullback, and then trying to hop in on future strength.
So look, one thing, KTT rang the closing bell on Friday at the exchange. So eyes have been on that company for a couple of days now. I guess it's a recent IPO. So it's curious. I think if you're looking at strength, it was nice to hear Dan. There's enough divergence between stocks that are going up on hype for absolutely no more reason than hype, and that stocks are their price is a function of growth fundamentals and the future, the ones that are going to be here in 5 to 10 years, as Dan said. And I think those are the stocks you follow. We know that if you're trading this market and you're looking for a little bit of disposable income, I beg everybody to use technical analysis, because you will be protected yourself by risk management using stop orders at all times. Every trade you get in should have a plan. When you see stocks move like that, and they can be a Tesla from a day trading perspective, or they can be the BAKTT or any of these other crazy names, Affirm, UPST, Myrna. I mean, there's DWAC. It doesn't matter. We need to differentiate. If you're a trader in this market, you need to use technical analysis. You need to protect every trade, because you can literally go to the kitchen and get a cup of coffee, and you can turn a beautiful winning trade into a losing trade at the snap of a finger. So I beg everybody to do that. Whether you learn it from my partner David Green at Wall Street Global, you learn it from anyone in the education space, I beg of you to do that. And then from an investment point of view, long term, I love what Dan said, because there are companies, there are names, some of them are new to us in the market, and they're new within the pay space and the crypto space and whatnot, that are going to be here in 5 to 10 years. And those are the names to focus on. If you look at them from a chart perspective, you can see the ones that have beautiful charts. A beautiful chart is one that goes up. It's got a pullback to its moving averages, and it goes higher and higher for the right reasons. That there's no fast and furious moves on the way up, on the way down. That means that the big players in the game are not there, guys. When you see that kind of volatility, that means that nobody with a really mature sense of investment is playing in that stock for the day, perhaps, or not. And then you want to trade it from a day trading perspective, fine. But as a long-term investment, it's the big guys aren't playing in that space.
Thoughts on that, Danny?
Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, absolutely. I agree. I think the one thing that people maybe aren't talking about, I think crypto is kind of sexy to talk about, with blockchain and how it's going to revolutionize industry XYZ. But I don't really hear too many people talking about the metaverse. And the metaverse, Web 3 is really, that is the next step. And so looking at companies like Roblox, like Matterport, anything that's going to be dealing with the metaverse, I think that's going to be your next big technology advancement, because that's where everything is going. As people are working more from home, they're going to look to escape from their inner home realities. So yeah, listen. Everything I said before, everything that Peter said, everything it makes sense. If you want to play the game now, you focus on strength, you day trade, or you take those high probability type of trades. You look at technical analysis. You have a plan going in. Those are the types of things you need to do. But if you're a long term investor and you want to take some chances on what is coming, then I would be looking not only at crypto and blockchain, but at the metaverse.
Definitely. And I think that's why today we're probably going to see when Facebook goes to announce its new parent company name change. I heard that it might have something to do with the metaverse somewhere in there. I think that's what they're trying to get at, is that that's the direction that they're moving into. So you probably hit that nail on the head. And I wouldn't be surprised to see it somewhere within their name. Richard, I haven't really gone to you for comment. Overall thoughts on this macro perspective that we've been discussing, and then also if any names that you've mentioned. We're about an hour past market open now. If anything's moved and formed any bases or anything like that that stand out to you, we'd love to hear it.
Sure. So yeah, my perspective is very similar to Ben's. I kind of let price dictate, price strength and price trends dictate how I'm viewing the market. I try to simplify as much as possible. Fundamentals at the end of the day, they're important, but the raw accumulation by funds is gonna be what moves the growth leaders, and you can see that on the charts. Technical analysis for me is kind of my guiding light. So with that said, in terms of stuff that's moving, a lot of stuff is strong today. Coin, AFRM breaking out 2 all-time highs. UPST also had an opening range breakout and is pulling back on lighter volume right now. Also a 2-2 reversal on the daily. So that's one thing I'm watching here. But yeah, that's pretty much my perspective. Brian Shannon likes to say only price pays. And I was talking to Tom Basso. I had an interview with him a few weeks ago, and he really reemphasized that as a technical trader, you want your signals to be as close to price as possible, because that's what's dictating your risk and what is also dictating your profits as well. So that's kind of my perspective.
Can you elaborate a little bit more for just a second what that means to say your signals are as close to price as possible?
Yeah, I mean, my signals are price moves, price moving through pivots, price moving and bouncing off moving averages, find support there. As a technical trader, I mean, you want to be able to define your risk, setting your stops at the low of the day on a breakout, setting your stops at a moving average, and letting the chart be your ultimate decider in terms of buys and sells. Personally, I'm a techno fundamentalist. I use fundamentals to kind of guide me where to look in terms of stock selection. Like Coin, of course, has a whole kind of crypto theme behind it, so that kind of pushes me that way. But ultimately, it's the price strength, the moving up on high volume, pulling back on lighter volume, suggesting accumulation and dry up of sellers, and then just looking for a spot to get in on a nice trend in an overall strong stock with great earnings, sales, margins, and just kind of following that trend as long as it lasts, using those moving averages as my kind of my trailing stop, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. Appreciate the explanation there. Evan, going back to you, any other topics that you want to hit on right now?
Nothing specific top of mind. As I'm looking right now, I'm seeing kind of PayPal move down, move lower a little bit. It's still at 4% today, but I remember seeing it like at 5-6% when we first started this. And it's fascinating to also see Pinterest coming back a little bit. It's only up like 50 cents. Small move so far, but I'm definitely watching those right now. And then one thing that I was listening to about the metaverse, I am a big believer in that, and I am starting to shift my thoughts and investments to that really slowly. My only thing though is it does still feel like it's a couple years away. It's a little further than a couple of the other technologies that I normally like to invest in. So that's one I think you do have a little bit more time in. But just overall a theme, like it felt like we were kind of, when we came into this pandemic, it kind of turned into work from home and that type of thing. And I really feel that when we come out of this, if we do, hopefully when we do, we're gonna realize much more that it's not work from home anymore. It's work from anywhere now. You can do that stuff, and there's a lot of stocks in that type of area that maybe again, I still think it's maybe a little bit too early, but possibly I'm trying to like shift my focus into. So just kind of as we were talking there, maybe that theme of it's again obviously a little bit too early to be talking about it possibly, but just what we think the post-pandemic looks like. Is everyone going to be returning back to offices, or do you think this kind of work from home, work from anywhere type theme is going to stick around and persist?
Yeah, discussed this a little bit on a real estate space last week with, you know, are these buildings going to start to be repurposed even as, we see less need for commercial? Danny, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, actually, I was gonna I was gonna say it is a little early for metaverse forward companies, but you could look at metaverse more from a, let's say, infrastructure or software play. So companies like Fastly on the cloud side, companies like Unity Software, ticker U, those would be the companies I would be looking at now to maybe start building positions. I still like them from a non-metaverse perspective, but I think they will be players when the metaverse actually comes on, and does whatever it's going to do to industry worldwide. Um, but WeWork, I mean, man, I hate the company. The whole story of what happened pre-IPO. I mean, it just wasn't a great story. But you know, living and working in a city like New York City, these co-location workspaces are picking up steam again. So WeWork, might be something to take a look at now. They just recently IPO'd. I don't know what they look like from a valuation standpoint. I don't know if they're still burning cash, but I really feel like when you look at when it comes to whatever that's saying, there's a tax brass dollars. Um, productivity went up with people working from home. People are happier working from home. So if you're a big company and you value your employees' happiness, you want more productivity out of them, especially in this type of job market where it's hard to retain talent. Yeah, I think, working from home is kind of here to stay. And for the people that maybe don't want to spend an exorbitant amount of money on an office, a co-located workspace is really coming back in vogue, I think.
Can I talk about this for a sec?
100%.
Yeah, thank you for that, Danny. I agree with you. Look, I was on the floor last week when WeWork went public again, and it was fascinating. I was also around when we were entertaining the former CEO when we were trying to woo them to come down to the floor of the stock exchange when everything looked bright and shiny, and there was they were the flavor of the moment. And what a dark story, what a horrifying story. It really changed the course of, it's like friggin' Superman, man. It changed the course of human events, the way that company blew up, combusted, imploded, and the effect it had for probably 6 months to a year on the whole IPO market. So to watch them actually come back, and I don't know much about the valuation as Dan described, but I think it's a testament to the fact that there is some momentum back in that space. I'm baffled the fact that people were more productive at home. I think it was more a function of the COVID thing. I think there is some talk about the fact that the lack of human interaction in the workspace is going to affect the stream of ideas and productivity going forward. So, taking that into account, um, that perhaps public or communal workspaces will be the way of the future. Obviously, as we've all talked about here, there is going to be a new normal. I don't think we're going to ever get back to normal. I cannot presume what people have experienced over the last couple of years. I know that my life will have been changed, due to almost dying from COVID and everything going forward. And then everyone, as far as work and anxiety and all that stuff. So, and surely as a market, and surely as an economy, surely as a society, surely as, look, there's so much innovation out there right now. There's so many companies that are coming out. I work with a company called Iron Edge, and we do a lot of the pre-IPO stuff. And some of the companies that are in the pipeline, artificial intelligence, drone stuff, and cloud stuff, and metaverse stuff that are coming to the market in the next year or so, are extraordinary. The the breadth of ingenuity that that exists in the human race is incredible. So I agree. I think that we are, I think people are going to eventually start getting shitbag crazy, excuse my language, just being at home. I get, eventually, maybe it'll take another year. I'm kind of amazed that people aren't dying to get back to work already. That's kind of my MO. I couldn't wait to get up. I do work on the floor of the stock exchange, so that's kind of a fun, exciting place to go to, as opposed to an office where you're sitting in a cubicle for sure. But I'm kind of baffled that millions of people are quitting their jobs, that people don't want. Look, even on the floor, we're still running at a footprint of about maybe 35, 40%. There's a whole bunch of people who are just happier trading from home if that's the business model that they can tolerate and sustain. And I think we're seeing it in every industry. But I think we are going to start to see a trickle back to people wanting to interact with other human beings in a workplace and whatnot. So that is the space. I'm going to listen for another minute, and then I got to pop off and go do stuff and go back to work. But it's really been an honor to be with you guys, and nice to meet you, Dan.
Yeah,
Same.
it's always a pleasure having you on, Peter. And Peter, you're good for that 12:30 with Wall Street beams.
Absolutely, guys. Everyone go check out the Wall Street Bets, Wall Street Memes launch of an NFT, 10,000 of them going to market on Wednesday. You probably can still get in on the pre-sale. There are it's called Wall Street Bulls. We're doing a Twitter space with them on at 12:30. These are 10,000 bulls that were done by an artist named Cam from LA. And this is sort of the Wall Street meme, Wall Street bets community that's sort of entering a new lane. I know they were a little bit too gangster for me to sort of partner with way back in the day, but they're sort of using this launch of their NFTs to sort of embrace their incredible young new generation community of traders. And we're going to try and use education, technical analysis, and kind of embrace these people, all you young, wonderful new traders who are in the investment and trading space, and try and give you a little bit, share some of our knowledge, drop some knowledge, as it were, on you. And we're using this launch of these NFTs to sort of get everyone's attention. There are about 20 bulls that are sort of celebrity bulls. Like there's a Nancy Pelosi and a Donald Trump bull, and I was honored enough to have an Einstein and Wall Street bull. And then there are going to be 10,000 of these algo-generated, very cool animated bulls that are going to be out there. I think it's 0.06 or 0.69 Ethereum for the pre-sale. And then once they go to market on Wednesday, it's going to be a frenzy. So everyone, go check it out. It's kind of fun and cool.
Absolutely. Be keeping our eye on that. Thanks, Peter.
Bye, guys. See you soon.
All right. Take care. Cool. Evan, any other specific things you want to dig into? I mean, we could look a little bit more into trade of the week, or do we want to move into some wrap up? And once again, to everybody that has been here with us for now over an hour, make sure, that Peter just hopped off, but Peter's a great follow. Certainly has a beautiful perspective from a macro view, has been working on Wall Street for about 35 years now. So has picked up plenty of stuff in his time. And, the rest of the speakers here, I think, are just always giving out a ton of great info. I know Danny, I follow his timeline closely for news, for charts, and he's doing a bunch of spaces with me this week as well. And also, if you're interested in these spaces, I do try to mention this each one. It's really hard to know when Twitter spaces are going to be, and that's why I've tried to make that process a little simpler. Essentially, Twitter spaces only lets us put out one reminder ahead of time. That is a post that you can use to RSVP. So instead, I've made a Google Calendar. It's completely free. There's hundreds of people on it. All you have to do is send me your email and say, I want to be added to the Google Calendar. Make sure that your email's in that DM, and I will add you to it. It's free. Nobody else can see your info, and you'll just have all the spaces added right onto your calendar. So that way you don't have to be checking Twitter constantly and all that. And then as long as you're following, the Wolf account, you'll see it pop up on the top of your timeline. So I think that's a pretty easy solution to make that happen. I've been adding a ton of people every single space. So be sure to jump on that. Evan, go into you. Any other topics you want to hit on?
I quickly wanted to kind of keep talking about the point that Peter was on and just my thoughts on it. So I kind of think that we're already at the stage of people going stir crazy. Like a lot of, maybe it's the small, audience that I'm looking into, but a lot of my friends are just starting to go crazy and need to go out more. And in general, people have been going out more. And there's definitely a lot of good points that like there's no real way to absorb a company culture, which is very important, than being at the company itself. I just think that like longer term, once you get past that initial, entering the culture, that type of phase, for most jobs, you don't necessarily have to be there. And I just think in general that 100% we humans and people, we're social creatures. People need to go out more and people want to have these human interactions. But at the end of the day, why does that have to be at work? Why do you have to commute 2 hours a day to work when you could sit at home and then spend that 2 hours going to hang out with your friends, people you want to be with, not people you get paid to be with. So there's definitely a lot of scenarios, and maybe at the start when new hires come in, they definitely should be a lot more in the office. But I do think long term, just there isn't as much of a need from it from either end. And what happened to productivity? Like I feel like just when you are at home, you are less productive than when you're at work. You get more distractions. That doesn't necessarily mean you have to go into the company office, but you just need your quiet place, whether that's a library or some people are really good at turning it out. But there's a trade-off, because for me, where I personally live, if I was going to commute into New York City, which is what was going to happen, that's 2.5 hours a day, 2 hours a day, where now I am more productive doing it. So overall, I could personally tell you I am more productive not working in an office, not working in a whole full thing. But I could see how it could be for others. But overall, the human need for conversation and social and everything like that, I think can be satiated with um, time with friends, time doing stuff like that, and doesn't have to be satiated with time in the office.
Yeah, I hear the perspective on that. I think most of us that are on here do work from home. I'm pretty sure, Ben, Richard, you're mostly trading. I don't know if you go into an office to do that, but I doubt it. I think, Ben, you take care of the kids too at home, right?
I do. I got two little ones I got to take care of. It's interesting to hear that too, because my wife works and she works from home. So a lot of times we're kind of alternating, taking care of the kids. And I can tell you from her perspective, she is in absolutely no hurry whatsoever to go back to the office. And her commute is nothing. It's a few miles. So it's not because of that. It's just because it makes everything easier for both of us.
Yeah, that's totally fair. Are there any, I guess, plays that are maybe more bullish because people are staying at home? I guess this is great for things like Amazon and other ones, but are there any smaller plays that you've ever looked into around this?
No, I think the big one that was Zoom, but it's not acting healthy. It had its run. I think the stocks, the gym like Peloton and Nautilus and those things, I think they have their run too. And now kind of laggards. But going back when the pandemic first started, I think those were the plays that were getting a lot of attention. But yeah, that those have corrected significantly now. Teledoc, I think that's another one that people looked at initially, thinking, oh, the whole industry is going to change, and that stock, has been cut in half off of the highs. So that's why we always say, no matter what you're thinking or what your theme is, price needs to be first, and what guides you.
Yeah, that's definitely fair. Cool. Yeah, I mean, I think that topic, I think everybody kind of has a bit of their own opinion. Don't need to go too far into it. With that being said, we're coming up closer to 11. Anything else? I think from what I'm looking at, I'm just continuing to keep an eye on. We've touched on it a few times, but the strength in the market. So, and I'm also watching for alerts on a lot of different option flow things. So, like right now, I just got an alert on a reversal with Tesla. So there is some bearish activity that's coming in. Perhaps they want to catch this overextension. So there's stuff like, I don't know, I see a 940 put was an alert I got. I see some bullishness on FedEx, that moving upwards. I'm just doing a search right now for just unusual option activity, and there's plenty coming in on Tesla, and then plenty bullish, plenty bearish. I mean, when you look at Tesla right now, insane amount of premium. It's the top for both sides today. I see 781 orders at $958 million of bullish premium. And then there's 780 orders at $730 million of bearish premium. So you're really getting that both ways, and it is far outmaking anything else in the market. The next one is Amazon at around 50 million on each side. So there you go. Tesla is just clearly going to have some volatility today, and that's why people are trying to catch both sides of it. In addition to that, I do see a little bit on Facebook, but it's not a ton in comparison. It's right around 12 million bullish. And what else is coming in? Upstart, a little bit there. Some just came in for Lucid. Some popular names, Google. I see, several of these Annie, that's been kind of up today. And actually, I'm just taking a closer look right now at ANY. Yeah, I see a lot of bullish unusual options activity. Nothing too crazy big. Usually between 10 to 22,000 on the premium. So yeah, that's just what I'm continuing to monitor. We mentioned SE earlier, so if anybody's taking a look at SE, that has kind of started forming out a base. It had come back up to about 2% down on the day. It's now back down to about 3% down, and it's moving sideways, traversing. Still something that I definitely am considering for our trade of the week. I would probably go with something around the 360 call if I was to do that. Just looking at where the all-time highs have been, which is right around 370, and then looking at 360, that's kind of where it traversed a little bit. But still waiting on that. Although it's nice to see it, respecting its moving averages, and still holding on to my backed call, which I just found out thanks to Evan is VIH. So I did not realize that was VIH, but it's okay. It's moving interestingly. It basically found a little bit of resistance at 1533, and then now it seems to be kind of moving around this 16 point after going up to 1740. So I don't know. That thing's just giving me the shakes because it's moving between no gain and 25%, just like up and down, back and forth. So I'm gonna still hold for a little bit. It's really not something that I want to take a loss on. So I'm keeping a close eye on it, as you have to do unless you're trading with very tight stops. But it's hard with something like this, which could drop and then pop back immediately. So I'm just instead of just setting that, I'm just going to do that. Okay. With that being said, I know people have to hop off soon, so I'm going to move into some wrap up. Richard, would you like to go first?
Yeah, sure. Nothing much to add on my side. The leaders are acting well. We're seeing a lot of strong moves on volume. UPST, Coin, AFRM, DOCN, top of my list. I just encourage everybody to watch the leaders, manage risk, use stop losses if you're trading. And yeah, thanks again for having me on. Always a pleasure.
Always a pleasure. Be sure to be following Richard. He is, if you're looking for new ideas on what to be swinging and stuff, he's a great page to start with. Of course, do your own due diligence on top of that, but never hurts to have, people for some great ideation. So thank you, Richard. Appreciate you coming on. Danny, I see you dropped down to the crowd, but if you'd like to come up and say anything, feel free to. Ben, would you like to go next?
Sure. And just kind of following up on what we discussed earlier, it's a lot easier to find the leader within a group where they're all moving than kind of finding a lone wolf. So when you see Coin and Mara and Hut, and they're all moving together, and Affirm and UPST and LC, they're all moving together. Energy names, like we discussed, solar, we also discussed. A lot easier. Find the leader, find the one in that group that's really standing out and acting the healthiest. That's usually a lot easier, especially for new traders. When you see a whole group running, just jump in, get involved, and try to find that one that's leading the pack.
Absolutely. Continuing to keep an eye on, and thank you for the ones that you shouted out within energy, solar, everything like that is definitely plenty of strength today. So continuing to keep my eye on those. The one that I hold is Gush within that area. Double leverage oil and gas ETF. Been talking about it for a little bit, and that's up about 6.5% today. So keeping my eye on the same areas as you, I think. And Evan.
Yeah, no, thank you. Thank you, Wolf, for being my co-host on the spaces. We always love doing this. And honestly, every single week we do it, I'm getting more and more excited for the next one. So I love these things. Excited to keep doing them. Ben and Richard have become, regular guests on this Monday Spaces, and we are so lucky to have them. They always bring extreme knowledge, and their Twitter pages are even better. So just go in, check them out. We're gonna have them on again in the future, I assume. So I mean, you'll hear from them again. But this Spaces was 100% more than enough for you guys to go in and click into their profile. I really truly believe you need to. So I definitely appreciate them for coming up. One more thing, if you guys want to check out the Green Raccoon, the Bullish Rippers account, I personally tweet from it. They're kind enough to sponsor the spaces and come up here and be a part of it. I tweet some really great stuff, so don't necessarily. I would love for you guys to click in and follow it, but just click in and check out the page, see if you see any of the good tweets, and if you like any of them. But with that, thank you again, Wolf, for hosting this. If anyone here enjoy spaces, which you obviously do, you're sitting here, you got to be following Wolf Financial. He is the spaces king. He's always on these things. And he'll tell you about his Google Calendar in a second, I'm sure, but make sure you get on that to keep up to date. Thank you, Wolf.
Hell yeah. Always good to co-host with you. I'm sure we'll be doing a few more this week. For anybody that's curious as to what's just coming up at 12:30 p.m. EST today, so in an hour and a half, we will be doing that space with the Wall Street Memes account. They have hundreds of thousands of followers on Instagram. So if you've been looking for, an entry point into NFTs, maybe this could be it for you. So we'll be talking about that. And then at 6 p.m. EST, I think a lot of people are going to love this one. You'll really want to mark this one on your calendar. I'm going to be talking money flow, so specifically tracking options and dark pools. And I have like the whole Black Box Docs team coming on. So the Black Box Docs account, Mel will be on there, and then 3 other of their employees. So really, really a big space that you're going to want to be there for. Again, like Evan just mentioned, you can just send me your email and say you want to be added to the calendar, and I will add you to this calendar. And then just things to keep an eye on for the week. Tomorrow, 6 p.m. EST, how to conduct fundamental analysis. I know I've been doing a ton of technicals on here. You should also understand how to conduct fundamental analysis. It's really important. And then at 8 p.m. EST, always our market sentiment and technical analysis space. So you get fundamentals and technicals 2 hours apart. And then on Wednesday, this has been a really popular request, how and when to trade options. So that's going to be, I think, a really awesome space at 12 p.m. And there'll be 4 throughout the week, but we're even talking everything from cannabis to shibcoin, NFTs, everything, fundamental, technical. So really just stick around. And I think that there's plenty to learn. And honestly, I'll say it again, I'm not the educator here. I'm here to learn, get really, really good speakers on, pelt them with questions, make it all free to the audience. That's the entire goal of Wolf. And for anybody who wants to see more of my content and other people's content, I do post more on the Wolf app. So it's a link in my bio. It's wolf.financial, completely free. It's kind of like Twitter, but built for stocks. And we're also introducing some really neat features coming up soon, like trading abilities and stuff, and you can conduct your research on there. So check out the Wolf app at the link in my bio, and really appreciate everybody who tuned in with us today for an hour and a half now. That is it for this one, and we'll be back on in an hour and a half. Take care, everybody. Hope you continue to have some awesome green days in the market. It's looking really good as of now. Have a good one, everyone.